Hey guys, my name's Josh, the wicket-keeping coach. Thank you so much for purchasing this How to Be Like Dhoni video masterclass. What we're going to do is we are going to look at the setup, we're going to look at how we get our hands faster, and also how we can then put it into a game. Stay tuned. The first thing we're going to look at is setup. Now, if there's one thing that we've always been taught as keepers, is to have that foot on off stump. But if we want to get our hands as quickly back to the stump as we possibly can, what we need to do is start with our weight closer to the stumps. So what I would recommend is having our head just outside this off stump here. It doesn't matter where our feet go, because we can still move as wide as we need to, and down leg side even quicker than before, because we're not so far away. But it means that to get back to the stumps, our weight needs to be back there as well. And if our weight's already nice and close to the stumps, it's just going to make everything quicker. What we need to do is we need to follow these steps in order for our setup to be as strong as it can be, in order to be as powerful as we want to be to get those hands back to the stumps nice and quick. The setup that I follow, I get my head just outside that off stump. Then I drop my elbows onto my knees. What this gets is that 90-degree angle into our knees. Okay, what we don't want to do is get into a position where our bum sinks below our knees. Because from here, I'm stuck. I can't get up without moving something out of the way. So what I want to do is eradicate that by just making sure that I've got a nice knee bend here, feet pointing down the wicket, and that's where I need to start.
So what we want to do, we sink our elbows onto our knees, then allows us to be able to get our hands out. We want to be able to get that 90-degree bend as much as possible in order for us to be in a nice, powerful position to push up and rise with the ball. As soon as our bum sinks below our knees, we're stuck. There's nowhere for us really to go. Therefore, we've got to move in order to get out of that position. And it's usually that left foot which goes down the leg side. We really can't afford to be in such an unpowerful position. Whereas if we've got that 90-degree bend, we're absolutely winning.
From there, all I've got to do, get my hands together, get my elbows forward, away from my knees. That allows for that full range of motion. And then that means that I can take any ball as wide as it goes, even down the leg side, just by moving my arms because they're nice and free. We get our fingers pointing down, our thumbs out of the way and our hands together in order to then create the biggest catching area we can to catch that ball and take it back to the stumps. What we always need to make sure that we do is drive our head forwards. My head should be well in front of my toes in order to keep my weight on the balls of my feet which are pointing straight down the wicket. From there, I'm able to take that little step if I need to, but most importantly, I'm always able to drive towards that ball and I'm never stepping back. As soon as we step back, that's when things get tricky and we're further away from the stumps.
It's really important that we get our elbows away from our knees in order to create this big range of motion, which then allows us to transfer our weight and collect things much easier.
Right, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at keeping our hands nice and strong. One thing that Dhoni does brilliantly is removes that give. We don't need to give when we're catching a cricket ball. We're not catching anything particularly heavy. All we're doing is catching a little ball. And the best way that we can get that ball from our hands back to the stumps is by keeping our hands nice and strong. So what we're going to start with is we're going to start with our inners and a tennis ball. By doing this, any push is going to push that ball away, but also we can learn to keep our hands nice and strong. Let's get into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the crease line to help me to guide my hands. I want to be catching everything on that crease line just behind the stumps. Keeping my hands nice and strong and making sure that there's no give, nor do I push towards them. Hands stay nice and strong. This even works down leg. So key things when we're looking at doing this sort of thing as well as our hands is making sure our head is in line with that ball. What Dhoni does really well is gets everything aligned and early. So if we can really work on keeping our head and hands working together, it's going to make everything so much easier later down the line. Right, the next thing that we're going to look at is keeping our hands nice and strong with these weighted balls. We're also going to start incorporating that drive back to the stumps. What we're going to use is these 4 different weighted balls. It goes from really heavy down to really light. And what we're going to look at, again, is keeping our hands nice and strong, removing that give, especially when we want to, when we've got the ball coming in at quite a speed, especially when it's heavy. We're going to want to keep our wrists nice and strong, get our head and hands working together, and then drive back to the stumps. As you can see there, what I've done, once I've caught it, my whole body weight is driving back to the stumps. And that's what Dhoni does really well as well. You can see that he finishes almost down the leg side because he is driving his hands, his head, all of his weight back to the stumps. And the quicker we can do that once we've caught it, from here back to there, the quicker the stumpings are going to be. So let's jump in with these weighted balls. So we'll work our way down. We'll go from heavy all the way to light. What we're looking at is keeping along that line, still looking to catch, keep our hands nice and strong, drive back to the stumps. Head and hands work together. We're not going to be super fast with the heaviest ball to start with, but as we get lighter and lighter, we can start increasing that speed of catch, ball back to the stumps. What we need to remember though, the most important thing, catch the ball first. Let's put our gloves on. Let's look at some resistance driving back to the stumps. What we're going to need is a resistance band. I've got some ones that normally go around our thighs, but we're going to put them around a pole, grab the resistance bands, and then once we've caught the ball, we're going to get driving back to the stumps and really work on staying in one straight line as we go back. So what I've got here, I've got a resistance band around my wrists and one around the pole. What I'm going to do once I catch the ball is I'm going to drive back to the stumps. Everything drives back to the stumps. Head and hands, weight, drive back to the stumps. Let's see it in action. Feeds going. We're going to use cricket balls now. All of our gear. Let's get someone throwing. Let's rise with that ball. Pick that length, that line up early. Get ourselves into position. Head and hands catch the ball. Bang, back to the stumps. Right, the last thing we're going to do to piece this all together is get someone throwing, but this time you have the mannequin in the way. All right, so we're adding that distraction level. We can have someone in there as well if we wanted to, which I'll show shortly. But can we now get something in the way to add that extra level of distraction, just like we would in the game? And then continue to have our hands nice and strong, catch it, drive it back to the stumps. All of our weight goes towards the ball and then back. First, we're going to look at seam, and then we're going to look at some spin. Oh, let's
So thank you so much for being on this journey with me, looking at how to make our hands just that little bit faster. It's not going to be perfect every time, but the more we practice, the better we're going to get. Until next time, thanks so much.